health-wise of the water is extremely dependent on Mother Nature and what comes into us from the agricultural community. We can go from a very healthy lake where we saw virtually no cyanobacteria or harmful algae last year to a point where it could literally shut off water for 500,000 people.
Well, in 2014, in August, we had the issue with Toledo, where we had the algae that really just isolated itself right over the intake. 500,000 people were without water for a weekend. We caught it, and it really was our wake-up call, because what we started seeing across the state, the more we looked, the more areas, other water supplies were also dealing with some of the same issues. So we took what was at first an environmental issue, and then it became a human health issue. And I think that's really was the wake-up call for everyone, that we needed to really start paying attention to this and acting quicker to address it.
I farm in the heart of the Great Black Swamp. Drainage is the #1 priority on our farm. I know farms in the country, and I know farmers that spend their whole life trying to find the next drop of water. And I've spent my whole lifetime trying to get rid of the next drop of water. It's a uniqueness to our area. So when you start talking about drainage and runoff and those things, it hits us #1 right where we live. But more importantly, these are our rivers, and this is our lake. We love Lake Erie and what it means, and it's our third coast in this country that we don't talk about, the Great Lakes.
Let's talk about the science. Let's talk about the end goals. We might have different paths forward that we think are best, but if we all agree that we need to do a better job with our water quality, each of us can do our part and help the whole a little bit better. So it's not pointing fingers, but it's working together. And I think it's hard sometimes when you have these real emotions connected to water quality shutdowns or water shutdowns, drinking water impairments. You have to remember that everybody thinks that's a bad idea. It's not just you. Nobody wants to see that.
Because we're all in this together, and we know it's not a simple solution. And we keep looking for that silver bullet, but most of us are convinced there isn't one. This is a lot of small adjustments, mostly doing the right thing at the right time. And if we adhere to that, not only in agriculture, but non-agriculture stakeholders, we can get to that 40% reduction that we've agreed to.
The question is if we get the reduction, what happens at that point? That the lake still, we reduced 40%, and we've got an infrared picture that still shows the lake still at the same status of what it was before. The question is, what questions are going to get asked at that point in time, and where do we go from there? Even if we retain that first goal of the 20% here in a couple years.
Looking forward, there are some goals in place that we're working hard and farmers are working hard to achieve. They're several years down the road. We think it's time now to let those work, to let the best management practices that farmers are putting in place work, let these new regulations work, and not implement more regulation just to be implementing regulation. We think it's time for the voluntary measures to be allowed to work, a recognition that it should be science-based, and it shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all. Every farmer should be allowed to use what works best for his or her farm to maintain the nutrients on the land.
Well, what is our control is how do we put the nutrient on to stand a better chance for keeping it, in the soil. If that means putting the phosphorus in the ground rather than putting it on top of the ground, that's really not that big of a change for us to have to adapt to ensure people and the general public that we're doing everything that we can, to help, this situation. So far here in Ohio, what we've been asked to do really hasn't been anything that we shouldn't probably be doing in the first place. And it's better to do this now than to come to a place where regulations are forced upon you. And hopefully everybody understands the situation we're in, and everybody gets on board so that we can avoid any type of regulation coming on down in the future.
I think the biggest lesson I've learned is people want to be part of the solution. They know there's a problem out there. Once they realize there's a problem, they want to be part of the solution and take care of it. You know, whether it be through a regulatory action, whether it be through voluntary actions. We know that, you know, in Ohio, we've taken regulatory action, and between the administration, the legislature, and the commodity groups and the farmers, they've all been willing to do it and take the step forward because they know it's the best thing for Ohio agriculture and for the state of Ohio.
It's the most fresh water on the face of the earth in one place, and we need to make sure it's there for future generations. You know, I can see the 7th generation, and you know, when he's looking or she's looking at her future generations, I want them to be proud of the difference we've made to the good side.